Very good. Joining us now for more on Boeing and the work it has left to do in the 737 MAX crisis, Jeff Sonnenfeld, Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies at the Yale School of Management. Jeff's also a CNBC contributor. What else, Jeff? I mean, other than the monetary things that we're going to be reporting on, still more public relations?
Yeah, there's public relations and more work to be done, I think, in reassuring pilots who seem to have this pretty well figured out, and the air carriers. And I think that's where management has been spending a lot of their time quietly but intensively. You know, I think I hate to disappoint Joe. Usually when I can come on the show, I can either be pretty caustic and critical about certain management teams or even be playful about other situations. And this one, with the loss of these 346 lives, this is obviously a horrible tragedy. It's impossible to come out with colorful, satirical, 1960s TV references or all the kinds of things we don't use. This is a horrible situation, and I think if there's anything to point to with confidence and pride, as Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Boeing is going to be an even stronger company coming out of this, but they've done a lot of things right and a lot to be proud of, even though the headlines don't often reflect it. I think the management has been as transparent as they could be, given that everything they knew was what the investigators knew, and they had to sit back and wait for the investigation by protocol. And they've been, a century or so tradition of respect, promoting safety, and I think that still shines through here, despite this tragic event. And there were sometimes horrible things happen, and it isn't the result of misconduct. And it's on a morning where we're looking at the crisis, of course, at Equifax, where there was gross misconduct. They were properly punished for it. I think this stands in counter to an example of sterling leadership. And it also happens to be an incredibly strong board that doesn't get talked about much, but the expertise on this board is off the charts, and they seem to feel very confident with management and the direction the company has taken in making some corrections and some repairs, and and allowing for some liabilities in a very, I think, fair way.
And they outlined quite a few of the settlement-type issues last week in the stock. I thought it was a little bit. What do you make of that huge move the stock made that one day last week, Jeff?
It's incredible how I'm glad you bring it up. How the market has responded is we've seen that at most the company took a hit of maybe 15% stock price through all this. And if you think of the 737s. Maxes are perhaps 40% of their product revenues, and that wasn't seen as a danger to the market. It never dipped much, and then they come out with, as Phil and then you point out, this $5 billion charge and $100 million of damages, with 50 going to the victims' families. That the stock jumps up. $16. I think they were great to hire the brilliant Ken Feinberg to wrestle with the damages. He's got backbone, courage, and fairness. He's sort of the King Solomon of the modern age, the same person, of course, that we saw at 9/11 or in GM or in other crises, that somebody who steps in that can really help victims wade through the damage issues. So I think they've done a lot of things right. And the software fix, it's basically... I think some software transparency that they're working on. The FAA will be, I guess, certifying that, probably getting that passed through in September, and the planes should be up by Q4. And we saw the endorsement they got from Boeing and Aer Lingus and that whole system there, that they bought 200 planes. I don't know if that's $24 billion of list price or whatever, is a pretty good endorsement coming in off the Paris Air Show. So and once the pilots saw what the MCAS system was, that they realized this is the automatic pilot, they didn't feel they needed to be retrained, but there will be training on this. But I think they would have liked to have known about this stall feature. But basically, everything a pilot needed to know was known and easily to see: altitude, speed, and engine performance. And there was an indicator light that is not a safety feature that anybody has ever relied on in commercial aviation. That wasn't clear how it would function on the instrument panel, but that isn't what pilots use to fly the plane. So that anyhow, they've made those corrections, and I think that it's looking like a pretty encouraging story. I think there are a lot of people that were expecting the stock to have dipped far more than that 15% as a great buying opportunity. But in fact, I think this is going to be a very, very strong performing company. And they were right to be apologetic and remorseful to the victims as they were. And their CEO, Dennis Muhlenberg, is a very understated, humble, transparent, honest engineer. I think a pillar of integrity.
I mean, the downdraft in the averages in December inflicted a lot more damage to the stock price than this horrific situation that the company's been going through. That might say something, too. Will it be a 2020 story, or we won't be talking about it in 2020, do you think?
I think we're going to be taking a look at the model of resilience that this shows. We live in what Alan Brinkley, a historian at Columbia, referred to as a culture of scandal. We love to whistle, many times the whistleblowers are accurate, but in this case, we love to sort of vilify management, vilify business. Sometimes bad things happen, and it isn't due to intentional misconduct or anything being concealed. And I think we'll see how transparency and thoroughness will pay out. And I think that the fortification of trust, I mean, you take a look, there are 24 different international regulatory agencies, 9 in particular in a federation reviewing this, in addition to the FAA and the National Traffic Safety Board, going through, Transportation Safety Board, going through this analysis. That's a very complex issue, and you have 900 vendors involved here. So there was a lot to wade through. Boeing was the general contractor, and there was a decision made by a subcontractor that separated 2 types of indicators that tied in with this, and took a little while to figure this out, what was going on. But I
Jeff,
think, yes.
Do you think that Boeing should rename the plane? Meaning,
no.
Do you think it's better to keep the Max on, the name Max on, or off?
I think that in fact, when you see all the reviews that this is getting, that basically any new piece of equipment, and Phil would back me up on this, gets certified. The damage investigation is separate from certification processes. Damages right now, the investigation of the crash issues, are all quite international. But the certification process, it's always the home country that certifies the equipment. In this case, you're going to be certified globally in ways that no piece of equipment is. So, in fact, this is going to seem like, for sure, the safest piece of equipment flying out there. So it will be, I think, a very strong badge of support. And you're not fooling anybody, I think, by the superficial nature, I think, of changing the name.